Welcome, my name is Speculator Seth, and my channel is primarily about finance, so I have a stream that I run every morning starting at about 8:20 Eastern Time, where we trade the futures markets, and we talk about finance and the Federal Reserve. We have a really great community. You should totally check it out if you're interested in that sort of a thing at all. We have a great Discord with many much better traders than myself, and really all I do is run the stream and blab a lot to keep people from getting bored. But anyways, one of the things that we love to talk about on the stream is politics. At least I love politics. I love to talk about politics. And I've made many good predictions. I mean, that's what I do. I'm Speculator Seth. I speculate. So I have a video elsewhere on this channel. You can see where we talked about the Moore election, and I predicted that he could lose. There was a much higher chance of him losing than the market was predicting, and I was right. He did lose that race. I also predicted that even though Donald Trump appeared to be backing off on immigration, that the shutdown would still happen. And I was right on that. And I actually made money on that one, unpredicted. So what I want to do now is I want to take my prognostication skills and put them to the test with the 2020 Democrat primary race, or as we're calling it, the donkey race. So I think this should be really fun. I think that, taking an analytical approach to it, a discretionary analytical approach, mind you, but really what we're trying to do is we're trying to predict as early as we can who is going to win the 2020 Democratic nomination, and I think we can have some fun with it. So understand, I am a conservative person, and I am gonna criticize these candidates from time to time, and I want to have fun with this, but the primary thing here is to figure out who's going to be winning. All right, so I want to do this live, so that's the other thing, is I really want to have interaction with the community. I feel like one of the things that's missing today, especially when you turn on the cable news, is that kind of interpersonal connection. I feel like in our society we're losing it, and I feel like that social media is kind of almost like beating it out of us until we don't want to talk to people anymore. But I really love streaming in the morning, and so today I'm just going to kind of set the field and introduce this to you and see what you guys think. But the plan is to stream it every week. And I understand, I know the camera's not super great and the sound's not super great yet, but one step at a time. And if you guys enjoy this content, we'll keep putting more and more into it and make it better, right? And hey, we're starting early. This is way, way, way early. Hardly anybody's talking about the race right now. It's going to be 6 months until the first debates and everything, so we got plenty of time to work on things, all right? So today I just want to set the stage. So the first person I want to talk about, these are the people that have actually announced. So the first person I want to talk about is Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi. I'm going to put her down here at the bottom. And I'm putting her down here at the bottom because she stands almost no chance of becoming the Democrat nominee. Why is that? Well, so I have a story here. Here's a story from Politico this week, and I'll put all of the links for these stories in the video description, of course. When Gabbard did finally announce that she would make a 2020 run, her team was blindsided. I have decided to run and will be making a formal announcement within the next week. She told CNN on a Friday night in a pre-taped interview for The Van Jones Show. The Gabbard campaign website was not ready to go live, social media posts weren't ready to be sent out, and Gabbard hadn't signed off on the launch video. The surprise announcement left Gabbard's aides working frantically on a Friday night to get everything up online. Jones himself was surprised by her announcement and did not expect it to come on his show. Digest that for a second. Need to take a drink there. How can you expect to become president? Excuse me. I'm just so stunned that somebody would be running to be president. They announce on television that they're going to start a campaign. And the people working on the campaign for her at that time, she's hired like social media people and people to make her website and everything like this. And she didn't tell them that she was going to announce on that show. Yeah. I'm sorry, but there's no way that you're going to become the Democrat nominee with a kind of amateur move like that. It's really laughable. I want to say something really funny about it, but I just think it's super sad that you could have such a bad rollout. Now, granted, there's always somebody that kind of like stumbles out of the gate. With the Republicans, it was really Fred Thompson. Didn't really go anywhere, even though he announced. But you know, this is just really bad. Now, anything can happen. Let's always keep that in mind. Sometimes I might sound like super confident and like final, like this is what's going to happen. But we should keep in mind anything can happen. Maybe she ends up being the nominee. I would be super surprised if she was. She might have some power later on, though. Endorsements matter a lot, especially early on. The team that you recruit to you, the people that you get going on the cable shows and everything to speak for you really, really matters. She might be a good pickup. We'll see, but probably not going to be president. All right. The next person down on the list is Kristin Gillibrand. Okay, so the advantage that Gillibrand has is that she's been around quite a bit longer than many of the other politicians. Some of these people are very, very new in Congress or whatever the offices that they have, but Gillibrand's been around for a little bit of time. But that also appears to be a little bit of a problem, and I don't see here. This page. In an interview with MSNBC's Rachel Maddow days earlier, she said her past views were not driven from my heart. I was callous to the suffering of families that want to be together. So the issue is she was on the Rachel Maddow show, and her past views on immigration, because she was very anti-illegal immigration, and now she is disavowing that position. She's probably just saying that because she's a politician, but that just kind of shows you the way that the Democrat primary is going right now. They are already so very, very early on in the cycle concerned about policies and trying to differentiate themselves, which is very different and interesting from the way that campaigns that I've seen in the past tend to run. Now, that's kind of the problem. So she also has competition. I mean, she's trying to appear to be very far left, but everybody seems to want to try and occupy that space right now. She doesn't really have the kind of the diversity status that a lot of other people do, but she is a woman, so that kind of helps. But it seems like the Democrats really want their next nominee to have some sort of a minority status, if they're black or they're a woman or whatever it is, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. That's actually some... I contradict some other Republicans by saying this, but I think that there actually are some reasons that you might want to have a president that's a minority. Like, you want to have a little bit of everything, right? So that always, in your organization, when you're making decisions, that can improve the functionality of your organization. But... yeah, a lot of competition. So I think that Gillibrand will probably be a really good pickup early on in the race. Somebody that you would want to endorse you. But I think there's too much competition. She's probably... Right now she doesn't look too good. But, if anybody surprises us, it might be her. So I wouldn't discount her. Right? The next one is Elizabeth Warren. So, here's kind of the competition, right? So if you're a white woman, why would you pick Gillibrand over Warren? I mean, Warren is very, very far left, okay? And she has the credentials, right? She doesn't have some past positions. She's ever since she's been very far left, and she really built her whole, career off of, when she was an educator in universities and everything, and having, the Consumer Protection Bureau and everything like that, right? So she definitely has the street cred, right? And the big news with her this week, just to go into, the kind of policies that she's putting out, let me pull up here. So she put out a new tax that everybody's talking about. And she announced her tax on Twitter, and then there was a story on the Washington Post. Here's what her Twitter post said. The rich and powerful run Washington. Here's one benefit they wrote for themselves. After making a killing from the economy they've rigged, they don't pay taxes on that accumulated wealth. It's a system that's rigged for the top if I ever saw one. We need structural change. That's why I'm proposing something brand new, an annual tax on the wealth of the richest Americans. I'm calling it the Ultra Millionaire Tax, and it applies to that tippy top 0.1% of those with a net worth of over $50 million. Okay, so this is basically a wealth tax where you're taxed on your total net worth every year. I was reading an article that they're saying that the CEO of Amazon would have to pay $3 billion the first year with this tax. So today I don't really want to get too much into the merits or lack thereof of these policies. Obviously, you know what I'm going to say, right? But it is pretty out there then, and that's kind of where they're going. And again, it's interesting that the way that she's starting her presidential race here, I mean, really, we're talking almost 2 years before people are going to be going to the polls for the final vote, That's how she's starting, is with a policy that's that far left. But it's very hard to compete with that. Really, this is almost like a caricature of, Republicans are always saying the Democrats are really just communists. But I mean, that is that's about as hardcore as it gets before it's full on out communism, like Russian style. So, that's where it is. Now, Kamala Harris is doing a similar thing. Now, Kamala Harris is an interesting one to watch. So she is very new. But she's a fighter. She was a prosecutor, and she's got a quick tongue. And she's always out there. So she had a town hall on CNN, and it was actually very widely watched, which is there's been some argument over whether it was the most watched ever, but for something this far in advance is pretty good numbers. So definitely need to watch her. Now, in that town hall, one of the things that she said that was the people seemed to latch onto the most was that she basically endorsed socialized healthcare. She basically said, all of the insurance companies, get rid of them. If you like your insurance, too bad. And she actually backtracked from that position. So here's a story on CNN. A Harris advisor on Tuesday signaled that the candidate would also be open to the more moderate health reform plans, which would preserve the industry being floated by other congressional Democrats. So they put that out, and then everybody started calling it a backtrack, and so then they backtracked the backtrack, but really we know she would prefer socialized healthcare, but she is smart enough to realize that some of these positions could hurt her in the long run, so she appears to be giving herself some flexibility. But again, very liberal policies right out the gate. And this is the time period where you're kind of picking up endorsements. Most voters aren't really paying attention. So again, I find it interesting that they're going policy at this stage. Now, not to be outdone, we have Bernie Sanders. Now, I don't have a logo for Bernie Sanders. Probably don't have enough room for him over here too. I think, might need to resize some things next time. But he has not announced yet, which is kind of odd. But today he put out a plan to increase the death tax back to what it was before the Republican tax plan that got passed last year. and then it adds like additional death tax brackets on top of that. So it's kind of like, you know, a similar idea to Warren, that is like the rich have accumulated wealth and we need to prevent them from carrying it from generation to generation or getting it back from, you know, somehow. And so Warren wants to take it away every year. Bernie will just take it, you know, prevent your kids from getting it. But it was interesting, the timing, because it was after Warren and Kamala Harris, and of course AOC. You know, we're just going to call her that because that's what everybody calls her, and I think it's because we're all afraid of saying her name wrong, and I probably would say it wrong. But you know, she was the one that came out with the, you know, we should have a marginal top tax rate of 70% like we used to, which we'll talk about another time, but that's not really the way that things worked back then. But anyways, so that started, and now they're all kind of like trying to outdo themselves. So he hasn't even announced anything, but he's pushing this plan right now. I do think he is going to run, though. I mean, it's almost inevitable. He's going to be almost obligated, or I'd be very surprised if he didn't. But for whatever reason, he hasn't done so yet. Now, another person I want to talk about is Howard Schultz. Now, I don't have him on here because he's not running for the Democrat primary. He's actually talking about running as an independent. But the thing that's interesting about Howard Schultz, I mean, this is the CEO of Starbucks, right? He created Starbucks, okay? That is not a bastion of conservative thought, right? In fact, most conservatives hate Starbucks, and when they're having trouble, they gloat and laugh about the trouble that they're having, all right? But here's what Howard Schultz, creator of Starbucks, said this week on CNBC. They had an interview with him live. I respect the Democrat Party. I no longer feel affiliated because I don't know their views represent the majority of Americans. I don't think we want a 70% income tax in America. So it's kind of an interesting thing that's going on here. And let me get a gulp of water here. It's hard to talk so much and, you know, not take a break. Mouth gets dry, and hopefully I don't choke on the water. That's always embarrassing. Here's the question: why are so many candidates running so far to the left right out the gate? Well, I think it only makes sense to me that it's because they believe that that's what the voters want. But that's certainly not what Howard Schultz believes. And Howard Schultz, again, is the CEO of Starbucks. So it's kind of weird. So the question really is, what is causing this? Has the Democrat Party really moved that far to the left? Or have we just become so isolated in our bubble that we believe that that's what's happened, when it's really not the case? And I think that that's kind of the idea that Howard Schultz is presenting here, is there's a place in the middle that the Democrat Party appears to be abandoning, and I think maybe I can win on that. We'll see. I don't think that the chances for a third-party candidate are very good, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. So those are kind of like the major players. I have one other person I wanted to talk about, and that is Beto. I love the picture that I found for Beto, by the way. You like that? He just looks so, you know, clueless to me as well. But he's not going to run. That my prediction right now. You write this down, and if I'm wrong and he actually ends up running, give me hay about it forever and never let me live it down. But I really don't think that he's going to run. I think that he's talking like he's going to run because that's what you do to raise your profile. But I don't think that he's actually going to do it. He has almost no experience. And I don't see how the party would coalesce around him. Now, it's interesting because he would fit interesting into this, you know, whole thing that's going on, because the thing that Beto has seemed to be good at in the Texas primary is he is very far left, but people don't see it that way, right? He kind of knows how to play it both ways, I guess, and get the moderates to vote for him. I mean, in Texas, to come that close to defeating Ted Cruz in Texas is a big deal, right? But you probably need to be elected to some other office or have some sort of really great accomplishment, like being CEO of something or being rich or whatever, to get the nomination. So I think that he will pretend like he's going to run and then ultimately decide against it. And he will probably be one of the biggest endorsements that you can pick up. He probably won't endorse right away. It might be much later on, after we've had a couple of debates and everything, but so he's one to watch, but I don't think he's going to run. And on that note, let's talk about some dates here. So, I was planning on writing them on the board, but my marker isn't very good. So, I'll just remember. So here in January and February is when you're going to see a lot of candidates announce. In February, there's the Politics and Eggs Forum, which is like a one-on-one interview with all of the different candidates, and both parties do this, but this time it's just the Democrats. So we'll be getting much more information about about their campaigns when that happens. So that's really the first big thing that I think we want to watch for, other than the week-to-week news stories. And then March 31st is the quarter end. This is an important date because we want to see who's been raking in the money. All right, and that first quarter fundraising it's going to matter, and it's going to tell us a lot about the state of the race. Then starting in June is probably when we're going to get the first debates. Although, based on the information that I have, none of them have been formally announced. All right, so like I said, we're way ahead of the curve. We have plenty of time to prepare ourselves for the primaries. So, and that's kind of the field. Anyways, let me know what you think. Feel free to call me a globalist shill or a right-wing wingnut or whatever have you. I find that whole thing quite amusing. But most importantly, tell me, who do you think, at least of the people that have announced, who do you think is most likely to become the Democrat nominee right now? Do you think that it's Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders? Probably not Gillibrand and Tulsi, but maybe there's some Tulsi supporters out there that are really into it. I don't know. That's why I have you guys, is if that actually is happening, we'll see it. So anyways, I greatly appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you guys next week. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.